Well, let's go back now to Bishop Marothi Mashashane from the South African National Christian Forum. Bishop, I was asking you if I'd captured you accurately. You support vaccination. You want people to get vaccinated. You don't want people to be forced to do it. Is that right?
Thank you very much, Stephen, and sorry for the network problem here. Our position indeed is that of saying we are opposing the mandatory, but we are not anti-vaccination. We are not advocating for people not to vaccinate, but we are saying people must be given information, must be influenced, and they make their own choice and decision based on the information that they have. But their choices cannot be corrected to become a stigma, or rather the basis of discrimination. So that is our point. We are saying people, in accordance with the law or the constitution, they've got the right to make a choice, including the choice of refusing to have the experimentally of medication in their bodies. Because the honest truth is, vaccination at the moment, it is in the experimental position. Even if it was a proven medication or prevention, it cannot be correct that people are forced to only and follow that without applying their minds of what must be going into their bodies.
So Bishop, I mean, I hate to argue with you on the facts, but firstly, I mean, we know that vaccinations have been used for over 200 years by human beings. They've been shown to work. Secondly, and I've put this question to scientific experts several times, is this an experimental vaccine because they're so new? The answer comes back each time. There's been more work, more research, more data available on these vaccines than on most other vaccines because of how quickly the world worked on that. I mean, I appreciate the other points that you made. Just on the facts, I don't know if it's fair to say this is a series of experimental vaccines. I don't think that's correct.
I wouldn't like to dwell much on that because it will contradict our position. We will seem or be misunderstood as if we are challenging the science. We are not scientists. Our position is simply to protect the rights, or rather the basic constitutional rights of everybody in the country, not only for Christians, but for anyone who decide, under whatever reason, not to take a vaccination. So I wouldn't like to dwell much on the whether it is experimentally or not. It will be on individual belief when you apply your mind into taking a vaccine or not. Our position, it's not shaken, it's not twisted, it's not even a mixed standard. Our standard has been the same, and we are maintaining it to say people must be given the right to make a choice.
Okay,
leadership
Bishop,
is an influence.
Bishop,
you influence people, people apply their minds.
Sure. So, Bishop, I mean, we've heard you, but I mean, you could say the same for children, right? Children have to be vaccinated to go to school against measles, against mumps, against rubella, against smallpox, against polio. It's been like that for many, many years. They don't really get to decide. Their parents don't really get to decide. If government has scientific evidence, you don't want to dwell on the science, but if government has scientific evidence that this saves lives, and the evidence is there, what's wrong with it?
Well, there is nothing wrong with the evidence. If that evidence is there, we really appreciate and we are thankful, but that evidence cannot be forced. Our position is that you cannot force people to go to the evidence or to whatever have convinced you. You need to engage with the people, and if you are a real leader, people will follow you. People will believe in you.
Bishop, all of that's true, but it's not an argument against mandatory vaccination.
No, it is an argument against mandatory vaccination, because when we're talking about mandatory, That means there is no exceptions. Anyone is forced, otherwise you will suffer the limitation or even the denial of amenities, including the right to education. That means you are conditioned to say, if you are not vaccinated, you will then lose your right to education. You cannot go to work. You can't have your job back because you are not vaccinated. And that is only the basis of discrimination. Let me quickly, Stephen, allow me, Stephen, quickly to deal also with this wrong mentality and narrative of saying there is a one right against the majority rights. At the moment, people who are taking the vaccine or who believe in the vaccine, they are the minority. The majority is the one that is not believing in that. Even that minority that have been vaccinated are those who took vaccination simply to protect their livelihood, like their employment, because they are under attack and threat. Bishop, so the majority is the ones that do not want to, and they cannot suffer for the minority.
Okay, Bishop, I'm sorry, this is an engagement, it's an interview, it's not a speech. I'm afraid I must interrupt you. So there are strong arguments against mandatory vaccination. I mean, I would say a strong argument in our country against mandatory vaccination is that it would increase inequality. It would keep people outside the economy and make it harder for them to ever come in. That, for me, would be a strong argument. I think a strong argument against it would also be, I don't know if government has the capability to do it. And if government says we're going to force you to do something and then fails, it weakens the state. I think that's another strong argument. You haven't made those two arguments, but just to look at this issue. When you say that for the moment only a minority of people agree with vaccination because less than 50% of people have been vaccinated in South Africa, I think, Bishop, if I may say, you're making a big problem for yourself, because the number of people who are vaccinated, the percentage, can only go up. It can't go down. It's already around 45%. Are you saying the moment it gets to 51%, everyone has to get a vaccination? I don't know if that argument works for you.
No. My position is, Stephen, the reason why we also having people who are caught buying the certificates, fraudulent certificates, that is an evidence to say those who are taking vaccination or those who are carrying the certificates for vaccination are not all of them that are convinced that they are protected. They are doing that out of fear, out of the threat that is raised by employers, raised and twisted also by our government, which is failing to maintain one standard. Our position on the case of whether it will increase or doesn't increase, our position does not shake, because even if the majority can be vaccinated, let's say 70% as it was proposed, that cannot be correct to say the 30% that is not vaccinated must be discriminated,
but Bishop,
have
I'm sorry, but Bishop,
based on their choice.
You just said a moment ago. You just said a moment ago, to bolster your argument, as part of your argument, you said it was because it was a minority view. Only a minority of people supported vaccinations, and therefore they should not be mandatory. But if 80% of people support vaccinations, going by your argument, that would mean they can be mandatory. I don't think you can have it both ways, I'm afraid.
No, I think you are missing a point. My answer will be that we can have both ways, because we are not simply here to advocate for the majority. We are here to protect the constitutional rights of whether it's one person or two. There's no way that a pandemic can come and suspend our constitutional rights. The Constitution is there, and it is the document that needs to be protected, to be promoted if those rights were to be limited, can only be limited to a certain extent. But it cannot be correct to say those who choose to say, whether based on their religion or on their culture or based on their natural, there's people who are allergic to the injection by nature. Those people cannot compromise their lives simply because they want to protect their employment or their study. That cannot be right. There's no way that we can say vaccination or mandatory vaccination, for that matter, can be accommodated, cannot be voted. Whether it is in the majority or minority, the rights of the people remains to be protected, to be upheld, and also to be promoted.
Bishop, I appreciate the time. I'm sure you and I will have this discussion again. There's a lot to talk about with this. Bishop, thank you very much indeed. Bishop Marothi Mashashane is with the South African National Christian Forum. An indication you can see of how difficult this debate actually is. Strong arguments both ways. In a moment, we'll find out from two lawyers how they feel